Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So, we're in the last few weeks of the Billboard year, and all I'm left thinking is that we can basically summarize 2021 as album bombs, and then the weeks in between them. Seriously, it's not even that we get breathing room, given that we get a bunch of new arrivals where there's no guarantee anything will stick, and given that we're probably going to be seeing an album bomb from Young Thug next week. Look, I'll admit, it's a little bit hard to get invested in what sticks or what'll just get knocked away. It's basically up to chance these days. And on some level, proof of that is in our top 10, but not for this week. Basically because Adele is going to get the number one next week, likely without much difficulty. That's what it's pinpointing towards. So I gotta give some credit to Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow for their remix and final push to get Industry Baby to the number one, even if it won't last. They got the sales, the streaming, the YouTube, the best time possible for radio. I got to applaud some good timing and knocking off Stay by The Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber to number two, where despite a sales pickup and ruling radio, it just did not have enough to beat that margin. Then we got Fancy Like by Walker Hayes at number 3. Stable in every category except radio, where it's now getting a push. I mean, it's got no shot for number 1. I will take the small victories. Then there's Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran, still at number 4, because it saw a good sales bump, even as the radio looks to have peaked, but it did hold over Way Too Sexy by Drake featuring Future and Young Thug down at number 5, where it's got its radio run, but the streaming's actually starting to slip. Interesting. Then we got our 3 songs riding on radio inertia and steadily slipping away, just like last week. Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo at number 6, Kiss Me More by Doja Cat featuring SZA at number 7, and Levitating by Dua Lipa at number 8. Then there's Essence by WizKid featuring Thames and Justin Bieber at number 9, where I have to wonder if it's going to pick up traction in other channels beyond the radio, because right now it feels very dependent on that. And it also might be the case for Shivers by Ed Sheeran cracking the top 10 thanks to the consistent radio strength. Even if the streaming is starting to shore things up, you can really tell they've rebalanced that formula in favor of the radio. But going further, we got our losers and dropouts. Basically the latter category is all Meek Mill, but also took out Butter by BTS along with them, alongside Drunk and I Don't Want to Go Home by Elle King and Miranda Lambert being pulled because Billboard gave it a long enough chance to bend their recurrent rules, and thus it's just gonna fall short of the year-end list for 2021. Kinda sad, it's a good song. But we also don't have that many losers this week, many of which fall into residual album bombs fading away. From Meek Mill, we got Sharing Locations with Lil Baby and Lil Durk at 36. From Youngboy Never Broke Again, we got Bad Morning at 100. And from Drake, we've got No Friends in the Industry and Champagne Poetry at 74 and 77 accordingly. Now the rest... Deja Vu by Olivia Rodrigo looks to be finally fading at 42. You Time by Scotty McCreery looks like it's getting yanked by Nashville Radio to slide to 80. And Your Heart by Joyner Lucas and J. Cole just failed to kick things into gear at 81. Kinda happens, but a little disappointed there. Now for our returns and gains, this is one of those weeks where I'm just not really sure how to gauge them, especially given the likelihood that Young Thug will likely sweep a bunch of them away next week. Now, for instance, for anyone can argue that of our returns, Maybach by 42 Dugg and Future is actually gonna stick at 85, or Woo Baby by the Late Pop Smoke and Chris Brown at 92, or Ain't Shit by Doja Cat at 96, For Tonight by Giveon at 98, or Praise God by Kanye West featuring Baby Keem and Travis Scott at 99. Now, I still do think that some of our gains are kind of precarious, but they definitely showcase radio's increased volume yet again, especially when it comes to country. Whiskey and Rain off the debut from Michael Ray at 82, One Mississippi by Kane Brown at 78, Same Boat by the Zac Brown Band at 64, might get a bit of a boost next week as well, Sand in My Boots by Morgan Wallen at 72, Told Y'all It Was Coming, and My Boy by LV Shane up big to 28. Hell, on a similar radio note, we had Chosen by Blast, Tyga, and Ty Dolla $ign at 65, and Ghost by Justin Bieber surging up to 32, although the video likely helped out a lot more there. Finally, there's Esta de Nada by Ivan Cogneo at 61. Pretty much here on streaming alone. No, there's no obligation to make this even a viral hit, right? We could just leave this behind. It's not good. But you know, the big story this week is that we got a lot of new arrivals, most of which will likely get knocked out in the week ahead, but we're gonna start with number 97, Just About Over You by Priscilla Block.
When I was just about over you. I was just about over you.
Okay, maybe it's just me, but I'm always a little bit surprised that Music Row in Nashville hasn't made a point to be way more active on TikTok. I get that it's a conservative, stodgy industry, but we're now a few years in seeing multiple acts use country to gain mainstream success. There's a market that's being ignored there. So enter Priscilla Block. She built a TikTok following after moving to Nashville, she got this single crowdfunded, got signed, and now the radio edit has hit the Hot 100 over a year after it came out, and honestly, it's pretty decent. The radio mix definitely gives the song more body and guitar swell driving into that hook, and strips out the very obviously cheap-sounding drum machines, and her story of going to a bar and having an awkward encounter with an ex that potentially is leading towards a reconnection for all the wrong reasons, it feels well realized. But I think my issue is with Block as a singer. She's a little bit flat as a presence, the faster cadence on the hook need a little bit more tightness from her, and she's not much of an expressive talent that I can overlook just how much the vocal production is compensating for her weaknesses. So, you know, it's a fine song, I guess. Not really wowed though, and I kind of want to be. Number 95, Who's in Your Head by the Jonas Brothers.
Got lost in your head, oh head, oh. I just wanna know now who's in your head, in your head.
I have no idea what the Jonas Brothers are gonna do here. Nick Jonas actually put out an album this year that had some really good moments. They could have caught fire, but here we are with another group number and a Max Martin production credit, so I guess we're here. And honestly, I'm a bit conflicted with this too. On the one hand, it's so very obviously trying to imitate an early Justin Timberlake song with the prominent falsetto, the choppy acoustics, the shuffling percussion, and that bass groove leaning into a minor tone. But I also can't say that the guys are bad at it, as both Nick and Joe have a really good falsetto, and the vocal harmonies are well executed. I think where I'm a little bit cooler on this are the lyrics, where it's trying to be a song all about wondering who is currently occupying the thoughts of their partners, especially coming off of a undescribed but rather tense situation. But it's also trying to have its own cake as well with how they play up how their partners are so dangerous and so hot that they will never leave them. And that just kind of compromises the stakes. If you're not willing to do anything if she's really after someone else, I mean, there's some tension, but not really any promise of payoff. And even if I think it's probably the best groove, hook, and production that this group has had in years, I do think they could have done a little bit more to really knock this out of the park. I think it's good, but it kinda should be great. Just saying. Number 94, Till You Cant by Cody Johnson.
Get as strong and as close as you can, till you can't.
I guess we're going for another round to see if Nashville let Cody Johnson to actually break through, and to their credit, the song's actually getting pushed that dropped this year, so we could get some nice Texas country. Well, you know what, to Cody Johnson's credit, there is a lot to like here. The pedal steel and fiddle is plentiful and pretty well blended with the guitars to back a really propulsive hook, and even if I think that the bass lines are a little underpowered and the cymbal mixing feels weirdly flat, Cody Johnson's gravelly voice pulls in a lot of passion into his sentiments of you don't know what you have until it's gone, so you better cherish what you do have. Yeah, it's a little bit broadly sketched, a little cliche, but the hook really sells it. I think overall it's pretty damn good, but I don't know, I think this should hit harder than it does for me, especially given just how hard Johnson's selling it. Maybe it's that odd stutter in the final hook that didn't quite pull off the crescendo the way it should, didn't quite explode, but again, it is good, but I want it to be great. Just saying. Next up, number 91, Life Goes On by Oliver Tree. This was just a matter of time. And yet that's balanced against the part of me that doesn't want to give Oliver Tree shtick the time of day. Let's make this clear. Over-the-top, garish excess making a parody of the music industry, it's not new, especially if you're committed to being as obnoxious, exhausting, and mimetic as possible. It's why I didn't cover Ugly is Beautiful a year or so back, because I'm just not interested in parsing whatever level of irony this dude thinks he's on. Now, this is a song from the deluxe edition of that album, probably riding the added traffic for picking the same song title as a BTS #1 hit from last year. And yet what I think annoys me the most beyond this guy sounding like your standard nasal fuckboy rapper is that the song otherwise is really pedestrian. In between verses where Oliver Tree rants about this girl treating him bad, where at least he's being honest and being an asshole, the hook is just designed to accentuate how it's all just so monotonous, where it's less of a joke and more just an increasingly annoying reality, only accentuated by that squonking synth that opens up the song as a pretty rote, trudging groove. Now, the defense of all this here is, this is what a bad relationship really is like. It's what it sounds like. Nobody's supposed to be likable here. Which, okay, fine, you got the first step down, now say something interesting with it. And overall, it's unpleasant, it's bad, but I'm playing the game to get worked up about it. It's lousy in the same way that bad trolling is lousy. Ultimately, it's just hollow. I'd ignore it. Number 90, Like a Lady by Lady A. Man, it took one bungled name controversy to completely piss away any interest I had in this trio, which was already on the downswing, granted, given how tepid their material as a group has been for years now. But hey, Charles Kelly made some really great music on his own, and the band now called Lady A has had a couple songs I'll stick up and defend. Maybe this would be good? Well, I'm not gonna lie, this is a song that certainly seems to have more of a pulse and presence than your average mid-tempo Lady A track, but outside of the fiddle, this song has a lot of which I don't like from this particular group, placing all the focus on Hillary Scott with no real interplay in the songwriting to go for another out on the town track that they've already done before, and here feels really overproduced with all the buzzy synthetic layers in the groove, and a weirdly thin mix to boot. I can maybe hear this working as a girls' night out song, and it clearly wants to be Man, I Feel Like a Woman, but this is no Shania. The melodic hook doesn't have that same swing. And honestly, it just grated on my nerves in record time. I don't think this is good. Not a fan. Number 88, Freedom Was a Highway by Jimmie Allen and Brad Paisley.
Living for a Friday, and freedom was a highway. Freedom was a highway.
So Brad Paisley hasn't put out an album since 2017, and that kind of saddens me. I mean, he's a creative and likable presence in country who will at least experiment a little to find some interesting results, and now he's a guest star on a song that was released over a year ago. Now, thankfully, it seems a better considered track than the last time Brad Paisley worked with a black artist, although he really did not have to throw in that line in his verse about singing along with a hip-hop song. Come on, dude, you're trying too hard. But otherwise, I actually really like this. The song has the sort of effortless, cool sweep you might hear on a better Kip Moore song, and Jimmie Allen is a good enough co-producer to give the track a real sense of sweep to back up the live drums and actually let Brad Paisley shred for a guitar solo, and that sounds terrific. Coupled with a really solid, wistful, driving groove that fits for a song that yearns for a time where they could cut loose on the highway and be young, this is the sort of country track that feels damn near dream country in some of its textures, and that's a real compliment. I don't understand why Nashville doesn't go more in that direction. So yeah, one minor lyrical hiccup aside, this is a great song. Nice to see both these guys making good music again. I'll take it. Number 86, Tequila Little Time by John Pardi.
A little salt and a lime will do. Hey, barman, will you bring us to? I want tequila little time with you.
This song came out nearly 2 years ago. Someone fire everyone on John Pardi's promotional team. This is getting stupid. It's not even one of the better songs on the album either. Come on, when you got tracks like Nobody Leaves a Girl Like That and Don't Blame It on Whiskey with Lauren Elena, can you at least try to be on the ball with this? That being said, I definitely remember this song from 2019. The big horns driving into the lead melody, the absolutely stupid pun for the hookup for her to Tequila a little time with him, the surprisingly earnest approach to the song with the warm fiddles and the bass groove where even if the song's really dumb, there is a bit of sweetness to it. So, okay, fine, it's not bad, but in a country environment that's receptive to more neo-traditional sounds, he shouldn't be playing for a gimmicky drinking song, which this is. And frankly, it should be better. Number 75, WFM by Realist. You hold me close. So I don't know how many of you pay attention to the Global 200. That's the list of songs charted by Billboard on worldwide. Probably deserves a lot more attention than the Hot 100 if we're being honest. But for a while now, the song Talking to the Moon by Bruno Mars is charted there this year. It's a track from 2010, a really underrated ballad from Bruno before he went full retro. Not my favorite song from that album, but it's a really damn good one. So naturally, to capitalize on this, we got a teenager from Toronto sampling it, pitching it up to make an R&B ballad that went viral on TikTok. And no, it's not good, but it's more because it's so stripped back and basic that its inabilities to execute are really obvious. The sample and the drums are really frail. Realist is an okay singer, but he's kind of an inert presence. And the central conceit of the song feels more complicated than it should be. He wants this girl to wait, but there's also lines about how she can't get enough of him, but also that she could be leaving, and he doesn't get it. It's kind of insecure. Maybe her temptations are better than you projecting on her, man. Just saying. But again, when it's also so dependent on the sample, there's just very little to praise here one way or the other. More of a fragment, not really a good one. I'd pass. Number 68, Easy on Me by Adele.
I had no time to choose what I chose to do. So go easy on me.
So this did not debut at number 1. It literally picked up so much traffic beforehand that it's on the charts a week early than projected, which is actually really nice because that means I can speak on it earlier and get the traffic that comes with the big new single from Adele, her first new song in 6 years. And you know, on some level, it doesn't seem fair, because Adele can get Greg Kurstin to lay down a pretty spare, piano-driven mix with a bit of subtle bass, percussion, and strings, and then just have the charisma and magnetism and presence to knock it out of the park. And make no mistake, she's still an incredibly talented singer, but I like how this song takes a slightly different approach compared to the darker, heavier tones of her last 2 lead-off singles. A lot more in major chords, a message directed at her son and ex-husband as she tries to plead for clemency at the end of a failed marriage for them to go easy on her, where she expresses how they both tried to make it work and keep it all quiet, but she wasn't happy. And long term, that actually matters, especially when it's just nobody's fault and it doesn't last. I mean, no joke, this sort of song's kind of heartbreaking for me, and it highlights the complicated reality of adult relationships that fall apart where it's not really anyone's fault. And Adele's always made music that feels older than it is, but isn't always reflected in the writing. But yeah, this one is. My God, what a fantastic leadoff single. Even if I got a soft spot for this sort of track, she did it again. You've probably already heard this. You should get used to hearing it more. Fantastic stuff. Number 53, Flocky Flocky by Don Toliver featuring Travis Scott.
I count my blessings, know I'm moving fast.
Yeah, because following Adele is fair to Don Toliver here, my God. Anyway, I'm still a little bit on the fence with this guy, mostly because despite his unique delivery, I haven't always loved his content or his production, so I was curious where he'd go with Travis, and unfortunately I'm not really wild about this. The weedy guitar plucks behind the fluttery cushion of reverb, the stock trap beat that never quite clicks into a more interesting groove, and then Don Toliver sounding disengaged and unable to capture any sense of urgency of a fast lifestyle that the girl seems more invested in than he is. Which translates into Travis Scott's verse as well, where he might be the only guy who brags about taking a girl to Lithuania. I don't know, maybe the production need to be a little weirder, or Don Toliver needs more energy, but this just feels kind of formless and empty. Wasn't really feeling it. Won't remember it. Number 51, Lo Siento Baby by Tainy, Bad Bunny, and Julieta Venegas. You know, I really wish I can go into a lot of these reggaeton songs expecting a bit more tonal diversity than what we get, especially as Tainy has been highlighted as one of the biggest producers in the scene right now, but it's the same shuddering stock drums, the same hazy echoing guitar melody. It just doesn't do that much for me, especially when translating the track it comes across as so sour. Julieta Venegas is playing the woman who is actively seeking the love and connection, only to be faced down by Bad Bunny blowing her off with any sort of love connection because he's only looking for the hookup, not for the romance. And it's very sadly telling that she's not afforded any response to all of this, which leaves the entire back half of the song feeling a lot uglier than it really should. Now maybe I'm missing something given that I don't speak Spanish, obviously, but I don't know, this didn't click for me. Again, probably won't remember it. And finally, number 17, Who Wants Smoke by Nardo Wick featuring Herbo, Lil Durk, and 21 Savage.
Who want smoke me? Who want smoke me? Nigga, who want smoke me?
And we're ending things off with this Jacksonville rapper, Nardo Wick, who I was originally surprised to see as many big names as he got on this track, until you realize he's been signed to RCA ahead of time, got a song on the Judas and the Black Messiah soundtrack, and yet even if he doesn't have that many songs as of yet, or even a debut album, he does have shockingly good networking, and thus with a little bit of viral traction, we get a song overloaded with gunplay and threats that's trying to play for the creepy trap vibe with a loop sample and some of that percussion, and a few places where all the rappers will actually play off the more distinctive bass knock in the beat. But I'm not sure I'm all the way on board here, mostly because I think Nardo Wick's hushed but slurred over delivery kind of feels the clumsiest. Sure, I don't deny that he could sound dangerous, although saying that his gun is gay because it blows people, that's quite the choice of reference. But when you follow it with Lil Durk talking about those who are faking the street life when he's actually lost people there and the internet then mocks him, it feels significantly more potent. Now granted, 21 Savage follows and isn't as sharp as he should be, and then Herbo goes for outright aggression and is actually convincing enough, and just makes me wonder that outside of flipping this beat, what else Nardo Wick really offers to the song? I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but 21 and Lil Durk have done better on their own, and especially with all the counting gimmicks built into the bars, I'm sorry, just couldn't get into it as much as I want to. That's all. And that ends a pretty long week, and one where the best and worst fall out easily. In the latter category, Life Goes On by Oliver Tree is getting that, with dishonorable mention to Like a Lady by Lady A. But all things considered, pretty good week, and while Easy on Me by Adele easily gets the top spot, honorable mention might be a bit trickier, and I think I'm gonna go with Freedom Was a Highway by Jimmie Allen and Brad Paisley, mostly on the strength of that guitar solo and some really great production. It sounds really nice, it's got a good hook too. And next week, just expect a lot of Young Thug, just watch, it's gonna happen. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.